Back here on CBS Sports HQ, Falcons minicamp is underway. Kirk Cousins, he is there and speaking out about his future with the Falcons after, of course, requesting a trade earlier this offseason when he lost the starting job to Michael Penix Jr. Now, Kirk Cousins entering the second year of his four-year whopping $180 million contract. But as of right now, he is the backup to Michael Penix Jr. in Atlanta. So here's what Kirk had to say today about his future with Atlanta.
You don't pout or stop. You just keep moving, keep working forward, and believe that if you do that, good things will happen.
All right, so keep moving forward. Notable Falcons backup quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, oh my gosh, an even bigger legend next to him. We know that guy. That's Danny Kanell, in the same company as Kirk Cousins, as former backups there for Atlanta. Let's welcome in DK here to talk about it. Kirk Cousins, I don't think it's surprising that he's saying, hey, gotta, look ahead, move forward. I'm not gonna pout. That's very much in his nature, right, Danny? But your takeaways on Kirk and the whole situation going down, that he is there at minicamp as the backup to Michael Penix Jr.
First of all, Jacqueline, I do want to point out my salary as a backup quarterback was nowhere close to what Kirk Cousins is making as a backup, and he's probably the most expensive backup quarterback in the entire NFL in the history of the league, potentially there. But I am not surprised at all that Kirk Cousins is both there at camp and he's also coming in with the mentality that he is. Hey, I'm going to work hard. Well, good things will happen. I think there's a couple reasons for that, Jacqueline. I think one, he realizes, hey, I need to stay ready to play. Because it could be here with the Falcons, if Michael Penix struggles early, if their schedule is pretty tough early on, I might get another opportunity to play. Like, they are paying me a lot of money. He's the rookie, so I need to be ready to play. The other aspect is if you get closer to camp and there's an injury that occurs to another franchise quarterback, one of the first calls that teams are going to make is, hey, what can we work out a deal for Kirk Cousins? So if his opportunity doesn't come in Atlanta, somebody else gets hurt, an opportunity opens up, maybe he's moved to another team. So I think he's taken this adversity in stride like he pretty much does everything else. But I think there's a very clear reason why he's there with this mindset. He's always positive. He's going to approach things like a true pro. And most importantly, for a Falcons fan, I think this is great for Michael Penix. He's got a pro in there he can watch and learn from. I think he can mentor Michael Penix, even though he probably wants to play. I think it's a very healthy relationship that he's got there in Atlanta in the quarterback room. Yeah,
we saw the numbers there. You talked about his contract. If they release him in Atlanta, which they're likely not going to do, it's over $60 million in dead money. In a trade, it comes down to about $38 million. So very, very expensive situation there with Kirk Cousins. You talked about Michael Penix Jr. So it's likely we're going to see him his first full season, maybe as the starting quarterback there in Atlanta. We saw kind of flashes of what he can do in those final 3 games of the season, but still throwing as many interceptions as touchdown passes. What are your expectations for Michael Penix in year 2 here with Atlanta?
I think it'll be bumpy. I think it is with most rookie quarterbacks. Unfortunately, the expectation now for rookies when you're a top 10 overall pick is to go out there and do what Jaden Daniels did last year and do what C.J. Stroud did the year before. And that was in their true rookie seasons. And now you're getting Michael Penix first year as a starter. And people are like, yeah, that's what we want. We want you to take our team to the playoffs and make us a contender and even maybe make a deep playoff run. Unfortunately, that's not the reality for most rookies. Like, I think, and not to mention the talent around him isn't exactly one of the top supporting cast that you've got out there, in the NFL. So I think it could be a little bit bumpy for Michael Penix. He's already, we've seen somebody who's got a cannon for an arm. He can sling it, but there is definitely that natural learning curve that takes place in the NFL. And the only way to do it is go out there and make some of those mistakes. When you have an interception, it's going to cost them a game or two early. It's just inevitable. How does he bounce back from that, and how rough does it get? If it gets extremely bumpy and they start losing and they drop a couple games early, that's what I was mentioning. I think Kirk Cousins, there's a chance he could come back and relieve Michael Penix. Doesn't mean they're giving up on Penix, but it could mean, hey, they're trying to compete for a playoff spot, because this division is as weak as anyone that's out there. I mean, Tampa Bay is the clear-cut favorite, and then the Falcons are right behind them. So they're thinking they can win this division. And if Michael Penix doesn't show early that he's capable of winning games, I think there's a chance they could turn back to Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, it feels like in the NFC South, it always comes down to the final game of the regular season to determine who is going to win the division. Very much so up for grabs, even though it has belonged to the Bucs for the last few seasons. We talked a lot about the quarterbacks, the offense, all of that, but the defense is also a big point of conversation here with the Falcons. Their defense was not great. They acquired some big pieces in the draft, Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., but how much better do you think this defense is going to look for the 2025 season?
Well, I think it's been a little bit of a disappointment, the offseason, for Atlanta Falcons fans. They were hoping to maybe go after one of those big free agent, pass rushers that were out there. But when you're paying your quarterback as much as Kirk Cousins is, and he's not even starting, that takes up a lot of cap space. So they went a different direction and drafted two guys in the first round, as you mentioned, and Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr., who are incredibly talented. Now, they come with a little bit of risks as they're rookies. You don't know how that transition's going to go. And in James Pierce Jr.'s situation, you got a little bit baggage that comes along with them, but they're uber talented. They could go out there and make an impact, but I don't see, this is the other thing that worries, kind of tie it back into Michael Penix. It'd be great if you could just run the football, not ask your quarterback to do a ton, and have a defense that's dominant. They're a long way from being dominant on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're young. I think they're talented. I think they could be good in a couple years, but I do think that defense is still a work in progress. I like the changes they made with bringing in a new defensive coordinator, but I do wonder if the talent is there yet on this roster to compete and make it so the defense is able to carry over an offense which could be struggling.
All right, Danny, the time has come for a record prediction. The Falcons, they were 8-9 last season, so let's pull up the schedule, go through. How do you think it all shakes out when it's all said and done? When you're looking at the schedule, what is the record for the Atlanta Falcons?
So Falcons fans may not like this. I have them at 7-10, which is a game worse than they were last year. But if you remember, last year they started off 6-3 with Kirk Cousins as the starter, including a game which he had an overtime win against those Bucs where he threw for 500 yards. And the schedule is not favorable early. The Bucs, they're going to be underdogs. Vikings, they're going to be underdogs on the road. Panthers is a game they have to have. And then they play against the Commanders. We talked about Jaden Daniels and that Washington team that looks really good. There's a chance they could be 1-3. I think that's the most likely scenario. And then it just then the Bills come, like, it doesn't get any easier from there. I think this roster hasn't been upgraded significant enough. You've got a young quarterback, first year starting. There's some question marks around him. I think it could be a little bit of a bumpy ride for the Falcons this season. I went with 7-10 for the Atlanta Falcons.
So what about the best case scenario, right? Because as you mentioned, the division kind of up for grabs, right? What do you think the ceiling is for this team if you're going with a 7-10 schedule prediction?
So I think it's clear. I think they start off strong, right? Maybe they steal that game from the Bucs, early to start off, and they get some momentum, and they beat the Carolina on the road. But a lot of this does hinge around Michael Penix. Like, the other alternative is maybe Michael Penix is the next coming of a Jaden Daniels or a C.J. Stroud, a young quarterback who kind of figures it out, and they're able to get there. I had their best case scenario at 9-8 there, so over 500, getting a wild card spot. I still wouldn't see them winning the division, but I could see them, getting hot at the right time. The back end of the schedule is manageable. They could possibly win a playoff game. So I think that's the best case scenario for me for the Falcons is 9-7. I just don't think the roster's there for a 10 or 11 win season yet. I think it could be down the road. But again, I think it's going to be a little bit of a rocky road for the Falcons this season.
And Danny, let's not forget the Falcons and Kirk Cousins. They beat the Eagles last season in September. So I don't know. We know Kirk has still got it. Some adjustments post the Achilles injury. Danny, we certainly appreciate it talking about Kirk Cousins and what is next for him as a backup or a starter in the NFL. In the offseason, as we count down to the regular season, CBS Sports HQ here, we have got you covered. All things NFL all the time. News, highlights, scores. It is all here with us, and it is all for free.